Peter Parker has had it rough the past few months, moving away with his wife only to be brought back to New York. But with the return of his greatest foe, Norman Osborn, things have gotten even crazier. With the loss of his brother and daughter, Peter Parker and his wife Mary Jane must cope with their losses. Between their return to college, Norman Osborn, the Stacy family, new gangs, ninjas, and the Trapster, will they rise above it all or crack under the weight? Welcome to the Forgotten Era, where we'll answer all those questions and more. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Forgotten Era podcast. It's me, Ethan, as always, and I'm joined by Matthew.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back.
And today, we're finally back to Amazing Spider-Man by Tom DeFalco and Steve Skroce, ?
Yeah, he's not on this a lot in this arc.
Yeah, he's starting to drop. After this series of issues, he's got like 2 or 3 more, and then he's gone. But in terms of the show, kind of like last episode, there's not really a whole lot of update. Next episode, we're planning on having a guest. I don't really want to say who in fear that it might not come to fruition, but it's supposed to. So who knows? I guess we'll see when we get there. Did you have anything that you wanted to say, or do you want to just get straight into the books here?
So right off the bat, let's get into the issues, but like right off the bat, these are very dense. This is a very dense couple of issues. We're doing 5 issues tonight, 421 to 425 of ASM. Because of how dense these issues are, the way we normally do our summaries and everything are going to be a little bit reduced this time to kind of get through it a little bit quicker. So I highly recommend, you get Marvel Unlimited, read the issue along with the episode, or go to your local shop and find these books. You can get these books for like $4 at most shops.
Find them.
The Amazing Spider-Mans you can find 100%. I've out of all the books in this era, this 421 issue, like I've seen so many times. In fact, I'm organizing my books right now, and I'm looking at 3 copies of it on my floor right now. So you can find it, or come to my house. I'll give it to you. Yeah. But yeah, so we can jump right into it. I can start if you want me to.
All right, cool. I'll do the little intro blurb for him first, since you don't have them written down. All right, Amazing Spider-Man number 421, And Death Shall Fly Like a Dragon, was released on January 15th, 1997, written by Tom DeFalco, penciled by Steve Skroce, and inked by Bud LaRosa, with colors by Bob Sharon. All right, there you go.
Thank you for that. I had everything but the date, so that helps.
Oh, okay,
cool. So like I said, our plot begins with Peter at a paid event, a paid gig by the Bugle at a street fair, running into Bugle photographer Angela. The two exchange pleasantries as Angela waits for her cousin Miko, who is a martial artist, as shown by her, for whatever reason, bringing a wooden staff with her. At that very moment, a group of ninjas attack Miko. Peter changes into Spider-Man and starts beating up the assailants with a wooden mallet from the fair game. The two are able to fend off the ninjas despite Miko's protests due to her stating that this is a matter of honor and that she needs no help. After the battle, the two cousins reflect on the event, and Angela demands answers on why they attacked Miko. She explains that the head ninja was her former fiancé, Carsano, whom they both studied martial arts together, but he joined a cult called the True Believers, an offshoot of the Hand, and became a follower of Madame Qua. Qua promises Carsano the title of Dragonfly, a state of flawlessness, and thus Carsano forsook his fiancée. Qua ordered him next to kill Miko, but he only has 3 chances, and today was his second chance. While noticing someone at the window, Miko charges just in time for it to be shown that Peter was in fact listening at the window and heard the whole story. The two then run into Carsano again and duel it out. Peter humiliates him and stops him from killing Miko. Hisano then kills himself. We then end the issue with Miko meeting with Lady Qua, and to our shock, it's revealed she is in the cult and now has the title of Dragonfly. And I'm going to go right into Hidden Agendas just to knock it out real quick. Hidden Agendas, Tom DeFalco and Geoff Isherwood. Is it pronounced Jeff or Joff?
I think that's Jeff. It's just one of
Jeff?
those like
Yeah.
uncommon spellings of Jeff.
So this is going to be really quick, and the way that this structured is how the rest of the books are going to go, because these books are dense. So this is really short. Peter runs late to meet MJ at ESU. He runs into his former coworker, Jacob Conover, who is now a
Hint, hint,
professor now.
hint, hint.
Who's now a professor now. MJ and Peter meet up to pay for their classes and run into the Stacys. We then pan to the ninjas attacking a Rose hideout and the Rose losing his mind because of the attack. The story ends with Chesbro opening a video link to Madame Qua, showing the two are working together, talking about the running with Spidey and what to do next. The issue then finally ends with MJ and Peter walking home, talking about giving college their best shot. That is the end of the issue in a full, complete run.
Cool. So, you want me to go first on thoughts? You want to go first on thoughts?
You go first on thoughts.
This is okay. I don't know. It's kind of one of those introductory things where now we have to introduce another sect of the Black Tarantula's crime because El Uno is dead. So we kind of need like a new enforcer. So why not a whole group of them? And this is where we're gonna be different because I pronounce it Mako, not Maiko. So just bear with us in terms of pronunciations. Her story was fine. Angela Yin, is this like her first appearance? I don't really remember her being mentioned before this.
I honestly don't remember either.
Gotcha. So it's just if it is her first appearance, I probably should have looked that up. But if it is, then we're introducing like a bunch of new stuff in this issue. Madame Qua, Mako, the True Believers, the now dead fake Dragonfly. Overall, I think it's okay. I don't really have too much to say in terms of depth. I think Peter using the like game mallet is really funny, just a funny visual. Scrooge, again, he does masked characters really well, but anytime someone shows their face, it makes me kind of want to vomit. There's just something about the lips that I just don't enjoy. There's this in the first page of the book where Mako is like walking in with her stick. There's this guy in a blue shirt with this kid that looks like she's like 80 years old, and he has the largest chest of all time and the tiniest head. It's very funny to look at, and of course she has to have like a not the child, but Mako has to have this giant like boob slit because it's the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the dude looks like a Gaston from was it
He
Beauty and the
does look
Beast?
like
Yeah.
Gaston. That's
And, and
so accurate.
and the girl looks like she just has been given like a diagnosis of terminal cancer. She does not look happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, not a lot that I could really, not a lot of. There's a lot of meat on this bone. But the question is, do you want to eat the meat?
Yeah, it's like there's stuff happening and they're talking about all this very specific stuff. But is it gonna matter in the long run? Because they kind of like build it up and then dude just dies. So
Which I mean, so I as a Daredevil fan, I don't mind like this whole thing being like a these true believers being a cut off from the hand and everything. I don't mind that. It does add kind of like lore to, backstory already built in, kind of. If you're aware of the lore with Daredevil in the hand and everything, so you can kind of infer some stuff. But like, the what's his name, Caesano, he's a one note villain that and he's a stereotypical martial arts honorable, you know, ninja dude. He's there's nothing in it that is like there's nothing about him that's really stands out. I mean, the best thing that happens to him is when he goes to slash his sword down and Peter breaks the katana with
Yeah,
with just his fingers. He just grabs it and lifts the blade off,
that was a
and
funny moment.
and then he starts punching him and doing the stop hitting yourself kind of thing. Like that's like he's a generic character that has a name that
Yeah,
Peter gets to beat the shit out of, and that's really like what I'm gonna remember him by. And then like the villain in the shadow that we have for this issue, the Lady Qua. You have this one panel where she's eating a hot dog for some reason. It just looks like Scroce drew her and then said, "You know what? I'm going to add a hot dog." On page 4. So like, not much really in this issue that I can really like say that like stood out to me. I mean, the backstory between the cousins and him being the guy being Miko's fiance or Miko, however you want to pronounce it. That's fine. Scrose's art, like you said, great masked characters. He draws a really good Spider-Man. Cannot stand his people. But his Spider-Man is deceptively good. But yeah, I mean, other than that, like there really is not much. The Falcon, it's a standard, standard story, standard villain of the week story.
I will say, apparently Angela Yin's first appearance was not in this, and she was sort of an established character, I guess. She was in DeFalco's Spectacular Run and showed up during the Clone Saga. I just don't remember her at all.
I don't remember her at all.
She's in Virtual Mortality and Cyber War, and then she shows up like a few other times, and then is in
Oh,
this.
well, your first mistake was bringing up Virtual Mortality and
And
Cyber War.
Cyber War, yeah.
I do
That's
not
the death
remember
sentence,
those.
so
I do not remember that story at all, other than the covers. Like I'm 100% honest with you. I don't remember them at all.
you don't remember the Master Programmer and
I
his
remember
naked, sexy gold body?
I remember the freaky colors, the digital
Yeah.
colors,
Oh my god.
and like that
Dude,
arc.
those colors.
Oh god, man. Oh, you know what? I'm looking. I'm dead serious. We're talking about this. I don't know if I mentioned it, but behind the scenes, I'm organizing my collection. I actually have a copy of fucking Virtual Mortality right here.
Nice.
Holy shit! Speak of the devil. Yeah. Okay.
The devil.
But anyway,
But yeah, going back just about one thing, when you mentioned him breaking the sword, I thought that was a really funny, just kind of, classic haha Spider-Man moment, because the dialogue there is just really funny, because Peter breaks it with ease and is like, and then Carsano is like, "It's a ceremonial honor sword. It's been in my family for 500 years. Not anymore. Go fuck yourself." And then there's a funny panel when Carsano kills himself, where Peter says he's committing some kind of ritual suicide. And it's just, I think I'm gonna be sick. It's funny. DeFalco gets those funny moments pretty well. I like that a lot. Putting a number to this issue, I don't know, man. It's probably like a 6. It's not the greatest thing, but it's above average, I guess.
Yeah, I'll go 6. It's nothing offensive, nothing great. Do you want to include the hidden agendas in that, or do you want to?
I was just about to start talking about that. Hidden
Okay.
Agendas was also okay. Um, just it's kind of the whole same thing as just establishing some stuff, showing a little bit more of Rose and Delilah. I like the art a lot less here. I don't know. There's something about the inks that just, I think it's just the inks. They're not appealing to me at all.
No, that MJ when she first shows up is horrible.
Yeah, it's really bad. And then we have a facial hairless Paul Stacy. So inconsistent and also terrifying.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I'll just include that in the rating. I don't know. It doesn't really add anything for me. It's like 5 pages. Who cares?
Yeah, it adds nothing to me. Honestly, when I was doing the notes, I forgot all about it. So, but yeah, so it would keep it as a 6.
Alrighty, cool. Time for 422, where I will say Amazing Spider-Man 422 was released on February 12th of 1997, and I'll let you do the other stuff so I don't cut you off and steal your shit again.
Oh, you're good. This is going to be quick. So 422. So the way I'm going to do this is this issue is dense. So I am going to group this per character. It's going to be out of sync with how the issue actually goes. So this issue.
Did you want to mention the creative team really quick?
Oh, I'm sorry. For whatever reason, I thought you mentioned it. I'm sorry.
Uh,
So Tom DeFalco, is writing, of course. It's Joe Bennett, who's a guest artist, and Bud LaRosa
Guest
on
artist,
inks.
hint, hint. Maybe not
Yeah,
so.
he's really the new man your mom brings home after the divorce.
Yeah, hopping over from
So.
Unlimited.
hmm so this issue goes into Electro's backstory as he is strapped into an electric chair. It goes into about his abusive father who leaves, his mother who dotes on him and lowers his self-esteem, his failed marriage, and the events of how he got his powers. Previous run-ins with Spidey are included such as when he saved his life when he was overcharging his powers. We then get to see that he is not in the chair for an execution, but that this is in fact a plan by the Rose to soup him up and to supercharge his electric powers. Once they pull the switch, Electro comes out on the other end more powerful than ever. On Peter's side of the story, he is dealing with headaches from the Morbius bite and begins taking tutoring from Paul Stacy. While on campus, Pete runs into Phil Urich. Peter goes to the Bugle to look for assignments, but is turned away by Robbie, who is fighting with his wife. Miko's side of the story cuts to her meeting with Qua as she trains and speaks with Qua about when she will get a real target. And then Detective Lewis visits Fortunato and questions him about the Black Tarantula. The Rose meets with Fortunato and is told that Lewis knows about the trouble with Black Tarantula's men and that he will help him. The Rose turns this down, and Fortunato tells the Rose he would hate for him to lose and that he knows who's under the mask. MJ then visits a therapist and talks about losing the baby and how that makes her feel. MJ talks about how it makes her feel that losing the baby was because she wasn't good enough. We then finish with Allison Mongrain on a boat calling Norman Osborn about her money not being placed in her Swiss bank account. On the boat is a crib, and Allison talks about how it would be hard to lose whatever is in the crib. And that is a very brief rundown of 422.
Very brief. There is a lot to get through in this issue. The way it's structured is a lot different than the way that Matt just did the recap. It's like a fucking Tarantino movie, the way it jumps around. Because like a couple pages of Electro, a couple pages of everybody else, a couple pages of Electro, a couple pages of everybody else. But Electro is kind of like the overarching person who gets the most screen time because it's just kind of recapping his entire existence. Because I mean, at this point, Electro hadn't shown up for what, like
It had been like
Since
12.
since Funeral for an Octopus.
Oh, he did show up in that.
So
So yeah, Funeral for Fred Octopus came out
that
in
was that
90.
was 95. So
Yeah.
it's been about 2 years since we've seen Electro, which is, or at least like in current day. I can't remember if he showed up in anything like flashback wise, but at least like modern day Electro hadn't been seen for 2 years. So it serves as a good recap, especially because I think this is just the first time they've gone into like his backstory.
Yeah, it's the first time that they've
Yeah,
actually like talked about like his family, his upbringing,
yeah, that's what I
finding
thought.
out about his marriage and all that stuff.
I think
Um,
all of that is super interesting and well written. It's kind of, I don't want to say stereotypical, but it was good. I think it fits his character a lot because Electro's always been one of those characters that it's hard to do anything with him that's interesting. So the fact that DeFalco gave him a full on backstory. If anyone's gonna do it, I feel like he's the guy.
mhm.
DeFalco's just good at doing that for characters. Um, what do you think about Joe Bennett?
So I don't mind him. I will take him over Steve. Um, I think his people are they're similar artists in the sense, but uh, Bennett's style is a little bit more appealing in my opinion. I think it's a little bit more crisper.
It's
It's
more
more
well rounded.
consistent.
Yeah.
Yes, it's more consistent. It's still not my cup of tea. Um, I'm just not a fan of this kind of elongated style that a lot of artists kind of picked up during this era.
Like hyper 90s.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. Never really was. I much prefer, the kind of like 90s artists like Tom Lyle, that kind of like
Yeah.
that like buff, but like they're still, not they don't have like long noodle limbs and stuff like that. That's more of what I like, but I do like them. What about you?
I like him. I think it's, especially when you go to compare Joe Bennett specifically by looking at what he did only a few years prior on Spider-Man Punisher Family Plot and the issues of Unlimited that he did during the Clone Saga 13 and 14. It's changed a lot. Like there's still the same structure is there, but he in plot especially, like those are some beefy ass people.
Hmm.
Like, oh my god, that's the kind of Joe Bennett that I don't like family plot in general. Sorry, Tom Lyle. I know you wrote it, but it's just not a book that I really love. Uh, but his art, especially because it was Mike Manley doing the first issue and then Joe Bennett doing the second issue, their styles were pretty similar during that time, and I didn't really care for either of them. Here, I like that it's a little more refined. People don't look quite as, like, I don't know how to, I guess, over dramatic. Like, it's not super macho 90s, but I mean, it's still big, broad chested Electro when he gets his powers, and Delilah has giant fucking honkers. So, and the thin waist with long legs, and everybody's got long legs. Bennett doesn't really get to shine in this issue because there's no real action. So, once we get to the next few, when the pace starts picking back up, I think he kind of kills it in a good way. I mean, the good kill it. But in this one, it's just, it's okay. This is mostly just a sitting and talking issue, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's well written, which I would say this one definitely is.
There are two pages when it comes to his art that I'm not a fan of, and it's the one where they pull the switch and he screams.
Dude,
That
that's
look
I.
that looks bad.
As I was rereading this, everyone that I knew, I took a screenshot and sent that to like everyone because I think it's such a funny page.
He looks like a chimpanzee about to attack.
It's so funny.
Like, if you told me that he used a picture of a chimpanzee, like, screaming as that image as like his reference, I wouldn't doubt it. And then the last page where it's him changing into his costume, I don't know if it's because of the costume. I've never like I like Electro. Like, he's one of my favorite, lead Ditko villain, classic villains. But like, something about him in this page just doesn't look right to me. I don't know what it
Dude, I
is.
think it's
Maybe,
the crotch. Look at the crotch. This is really strange to say, but look at the crotch. It's
what,
like
the dick
not
line?
it's like not aligned.
Yeah, you're right. It's not. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
Like I don't know what's going on with the speedo there, but it just like it's cut by that line of shading, but I don't get it because it's like how is his body like that? Oh well.
Yeah, it
I'll try
doesn't
not to
really
think about it
matter.
too hard. Allison Mongrain shows back up. This is a foreshadowing to what's to come for her because Mongrain and the baby, whatever. It's so weird going back and reading these issues after it's been retconned pretty much that the baby was miscarried, kind of sorta. So like, what is in the fucking cradle? Like, is it just a fucked up fetus? I don't quite know. I don't think they really knew either. They got rid of it pretty quick and then stopped thinking about it.
I mean, it definitely is the thing in the this issue that I think when people talk about this issue, this is the thing that they remember. This whole page. I mean, it's one page, but this page was a sticking point for a lot of people. There are still some people to this day, even after it got retconned, that are like, no, really, what was in there? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, because
there's
well,
no,
at the time they definitely were like, yeah, the baby's there.
yeah.
It wasn't until later they're like, oh no, the baby died in Peter Parker 75. So it was just like the dead fucking fetus that was delivered to Norman Osborn for some reason. Just
Well, I mean, the way the story is structured, it makes you think it's the baby because
right.
it's her, and so like you said, the issue is structured different than how I did the summary, but the way that the book's structured is you see MJ at the therapist and her talking about, I sometimes think I lost the baby because I
Yeah.
wasn't good enough for her, and then you cut and it's Allison
Immediately to
Mongrain
Allison Mongrain, yeah.
immediately, and she's talking about, and she's sitting there and she goes, I'll read exactly what she says. Let's both hope our generous benefactor, the somewhat erratic Norman Osborn, checks in with his answering service before too long. Otherwise, we may be faced with a rather hard decision or two, and I truly would hate to lose you, precious. And we know it's the baby because if you look at Spider Girl and what they did with Spider Girl, this is where you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
this was a plot point in Spider Girl that Allison Mongrain has a relationship to a certain degree with May,
Right.
and so we know they were going that route, and they chickened out because well, we'll get to it when we get to it, but it 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 definitely is. And it's not this issue's fault. It's more of like the future. It's
Yeah,
disappointing.
it's hindsight. Like
Hindsight, yeah.
it's just one of those things where looking back and like reading at the time, obviously you're meant to believe it's the baby, but now looking back at it now, you're like, what's there's no point in this. But we don't know that yet.
Do you know what this reminds me of?
What?
This reminds me of what we just went through a couple years ago with the One More Day retcon. Will it? Won't it? That this reminds me almost exactly like that
Mm.
situation. Where we were all pretty sure, oh, they're gonna do it. They're gonna at least do something with it, and then
And then
at the
nothing
last
happened.
minute,
Rug
yeah, and then
pull.
the last minute, whether you believe, what the internet says that they changed it to retcon sins past, but like that's a whole other thing. But like that reminds me of this whole thing. Like
Yeah.
So
It's similar for sure. This is, you mentioned the therapist. I think this is the first appearance of MJ going to therapy. They should put that on Key Collector. Because later she visits this therapist in Peter Parker, but this came out first. So I think this is the first time we're seeing that in its entirety.
I
But
better get this book graded.
yeah, dude, I need someone to send this to CGC and send them a request to put that it's the first appearance of Mary Jane going to therapy. I think that would be the funniest fucking thing in the world. I won't do it because it costs too much to grade books. But if someone does it, send me a picture and I will laugh my ass off and frame it. Anyway, grades for the book. I'm just gonna go with a 7. I don't know. I think it's better than the last one. I like the backstory and whatnot, and what we're leading to. So it's kind of
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go 8.
okay.
I the book is, I like the stuff with Electro. I like all that stuff. The art is, in my opinion, a little bit of an improvement. It's dense, it's thick, but like, it's a good book, and I like it. You should read it just for the stuff with Electro and for the stuff with Allison Monger. Even though it's
Yeah.
one page, it's a historical thing especially for our little sect of the fandom with the Clone Saga. It's something you should read. You should see that for yourself.
Cool. I agree. Obviously, I don't agree with your number because mine was lower, but I agree with your assessment of why. All right.
Well,
So
okay.
next is Amazing Spider-Man 423 Choices, released on March 12th, 1997.
So 423, the creative team behind it is Tom DeFalco, Joe Bennett, and of course Joe Bennett. Inkers, we have a
So
trifecta on
many.
this one. So we have Ralph Cabrera. I am terrible at names, by the way. Harry Candelario, and our good buddy Bud LaRosa. And then from here on out, these summaries, I know I hate harping on it, but these summaries are going to be like the last one. They're going to be quick and to the point.
There's a lot packed into these 23 pages.
Yeah, and especially the next 24 and 25. They're going to be all like this, so just stick with us, folks. So Electro, with his new strength, plans to become an A-list villain and protests that fighting ninjas with these powers would be like swatting flies with a nuke, despite this being the agreement with the Rose. Dragonfly and Qua train, and Dragonfly is given Robbie as a target to kill. Robbie, who has been having problems with his wife asks him to take time off because he is exhausted, but he puts this off from asking JJ once JJ goes on a spiel about them needing to put more time into the Bugle, and he goes on his usual Jonah spiel. Peter and Neil study as Paul Stacy shows up, stating that Neil's confused with the problem that Peter's trying to convey to him, because most likely Peter's wrong with the his solution's wrong. After this whole situation, Pete slips into his Spidey gear with his head still pounding and runs into DF, attacking Joe Robertson and his wife. Peter steps in to stop the attack, but during the battle, Electro shows up and dismantles Maiko in a blast, with Robbie pulling her to safety. Pete tries to stop Electro, but the usual tricks are not working. Peter is taken out by Electro and forced to beg for mercy. Upon begging, Electro leaves satisfied. Pete finds out that Robbie let Dragonfly go, and that's the bare bones of this issue.
That is the absolute bare bones of this issue. This is a great issue. Honestly, to me, I think this is a really good one. I like that we have the establishing conflict with Joe, and him doing the right thing no matter what, because his what Matt did not mention in it because of how lightning fast it has to be at this point. When Robbie saves Mako Muko, and like she pardons him, like she can no longer kill him because he saved her life, and they're all about honor and stuff. So by the code, she has to spare him, which is going to cause a whole slew of issues for her in the coming issues.
She owes him a Wookiee life debt,
Yeah,
or a Gungan life debt.
exactly. We get the classic Paul Stacy Marvel Wiki image of him with his sweet shades on, and his classic fucking goatee, like his full stash goatee. I will say I don't like how Neil is written here. It just the fact that he's in this at all, kind of unnecessary. I get that they want to. I mean, they establish these characters so that they can cross over. Synergy, yeah. But the way that he's drawn and written here, I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me after seeing Mackie and JR's version. But that's such a minor fucking nitpick, and who cares? The shock fandom cares. Other than that, I love, I don't know, I do love the way that Joe Bennett like draws Hero Spider-Man. I like his lenses a lot. I like that he draws them gigantic, and then we'll have panels where he's like squinting, and it's literally like 90% frame, and the lens is like this tiny sliver. It just works so well for me. I don't know, it hits that spot in my brain. And there's this page, for me it's page 15. I don't know what it is on Marvel Unlimited, but it's the full splash where Electro is like devious above him and he's like looking over his shoulder. That feels so classic Spider-Man to me. I fucking love that. It's so good. The colors are badass.
It's 14 Unlimited, and his Spider-Man in that image is very Bagley.
It is very bad. To me, it's like Bagley Bangus from Marvel vs. Capcom and like Ron Lim had a baby. To me, in my mind,
that's a good way to describe it.
Those three is like, fuck yeah, that's fucking metal.
I like his Spider-Man over Scrooge.
Yeah.
And I like his Spider-Man, but yeah. I think
it's so polar opposite, because the way that Scrooge kind of draws Spider-Man is more lanky, more Ditko-esque, where he's kind of like more like the lanky spider, and this is just full on like macho buffish shit Spider-Man, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, but I dig it a lot.
I mean, I prefer my Spider-Man being a little bit buffer. I like that John Romita look a lot more.
Thick thighs save lives.
Yep. I mean, hey, it worked. It worked for John. It worked for us.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely love this issue. It is without a doubt probably my favorite issue of all the issues in this book, in this series right now. What can I say that you haven't already said? I mean, well, let me start with the fight.
I didn't talk much more about. I didn't really talk about the plot of the issue, which I totally should. But you can go ahead.
So let's start with the big fight. The way that Electro is able to take him out by disrupting the electrical impulses within Pete's brain is really cool. It's not just him shooting an electrical blast and then Peter being like, I couldn't dodge it in time, and it taking him out. And you can really tell that this is painful because you have him begging for mercy at the end of this issue. And I mean, you've seen Pete get beaten. I mean, it's kind of a trope that, he gets beat once, he comes back and wins the day. But like this is one of few times you'll see him actually, beg for mercy, and it sets up what comes down the line. And I just think, it's a cool fight, and I like him being kind of annoyed. I just lost to Electro, and Robbie just let this girl go, and like what the hell's going on? It's really fun. I like how he tries to do the old hydrant trick with the water, and Electro just turns it into steam. Really fun. That being said, we're a couple issues into this, and I'm just gonna go off the bat and say I do not care at this point about the True Believer story at all. I
Well, it's kind of frustrating, honestly, that they would decide to include that as a sub story to this great return of Electro. Because, as we previously stated, this kind of era is going back to basics with a twist. But in this case, the back to basics with a twist, the twist of the True Believers isn't hitting as much because they're there. The Black Tarantula hints at some history with Robbie Robertson, which we never get, by the way.
mm-hmm.
And so he's just like a random target because I guess for some reason they kind of wanted to write Robbie out of the book, even though it takes a while for him to get out. And then he doesn't even really get out because he's pulled into another subplot with Allison Mongrain. Spoiler. But yeah, just overall, I kind of agree that I'm completely, I won't say completely, but I'm mostly disinterested in the stuff with the True Believers and Mako and Madame Qua and etc. I do want to go back to the fight really quick. One, the disruption of the brain electricity, super fucking cool. I love that. And second of all, I love that this is one of those instances in comics where the eye for an eye, like, revenge plot really works for me, because Electro was humiliated by having his life saved by Spider-Man, which at the time he was grateful for, but grew to realize that he kind of hated that. And this, he's just so petty. He's like, beg for mercy, beg for forgiveness. I want to ruin you. And I just think it works really well because it fits for Max Dillon. Like the way that he's written in the past, he's kind of just like petty and just not too serious. And now that he wants to be serious, he's still like being over dramatic as hell. It's just really silly to me, but I think it works for his character a lot. And even in the future, when we get to like the Gauntlet, it's kind of that same sort of deal, but without that foresight. This is just a great display of his character, and I enjoy it. I enjoy this issue a lot. It's really great.
I mean, Electro is a classic character for a reason in this fandom. I mean, he is petty as shit, but at least in this, the reason why he's petty, I like. I like that fact that he like turns around, because some lesser writers would just be like, "Hey, Electro's back because I want to write Electro," and they wouldn't touch on why he's back after an event like that. And nor did they go the other route, where the Sandman route, where he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a good guy for a little bit." So I like that he just comes back and he's like, "Nah, fuck you. I'm gonna be a dickhead." And I like the whole thing where he's like, the thing about Electro is like, he is astronomically powerful, and if he wanted to, he could be an A tier villain. He could be if he wanted to, and it's just that he's so petty that. Well, he's an A tier for Spider-Man, but like, you know what I mean, for the more wider Marvel universe. Um, he's just so petty that he can't help but just get low. And even when he has Peter, beaten, he still has to be like, "Oh, I have to have you beg." And he does the villain thing where he, beats the hero, but he could have killed him then, but he'd still leave. Great issue. Personally, as far as grades go, I'm giving this a 9. Love this issue.
Nice. Yeah, I'm at like I'm like 8.5. I guess I'll say 8.5. I don't know if I'm quite at a 9, but I think it would have been a little bit better if he would have played dubstep Itsy Bitsy Spider off some power lines, personally, just to really get in there.
Well, we at this point dubstep wasn't established, you see. So, oh, you're making an Amazing Spider-Man 2 reference. I get
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
yeah.
Really great issue. I'm a big fan of this one.
All right, you ready to move on to 424?
It's time for 424. Yes, sir. April 9th, 1997. Then came Electra.
Okay, so 424. The creative team is the same as the last issue, so I'm not going to go over it. Electra is in town and battling the Hand and finds out about the True Believers. Her mission is to protect innocent lives as the two factions duke it out. Peter has become so clumsy after his battle with Electro that he's now missing web lines due to the headache from the Electro fight and the Morbius fight from Peter Parker. Upon hurting his shoulder while falling, Peter becomes enraged and takes out his rage on the wall, lamenting his loss. During this time, the Bugle runs a paper going over the attack on Robbie's life, and Phil brings up that if they wanted to, the people who attacked Robbie could just get their revenge by going after the entire Bugle's family. After the failed attempt on Robbie's life, Maiko is berated by Qua and another member, Yano, who basically is telling them, look, she's no good, she's got to go. In order to make up for not killing Robbie, Maiko must kill her cousin. Peter is then caught by Aunt Anna in a classic Stan Lee-ism of him having to hide with his costume on, hiding in bed as she comes in and everything. This causes Peter to flip out, rightfully so. Peter then sneaks away and runs into someone who gives him a tip on what is going on with Electra and the ninjas she's pursuing as Maiko fails to kill her cousin. Spidey and Electra run into each other, and Spidey takes his frustration out by lifting an entire train, but Electra talks him out of doing something stupid. JJ then leaves town, and Robbie's wife wants him to do the same. Maiko and Electra talk as Electra tries to tell Maiko to make the right call and not follow the wrong path. The issue ends with Chesbro bringing the package to Black Tarantula with a paper talking about the events of the last 3 issues. BT sees this and then decides that now is the time to head to Manhattan. And that is a brief 424.
This one's okay.
It's okay, but it's got one of the hypest Spider-Man moments of all time.
Yeah, the train is really cool. And I'd like that they decided to get like a character so closely involved in the Hand into this for the sake of, kind of really harping on the fact that, the True Believers are an offshoot of this organization that is established in the Marvel Universe. You should probably take them seriously. Again, good Joe Bennett pencils. This is the end of Maiko's story. She is gone after this. So much for that character's establishment. But, who needs it in a way? Because there's so much going on in this book, and it's only going to get crazier after this. Especially after the next issue. Overall, I like how Electro's pettiness has now made Peter really petty, and he's just like, his ego is so hurt that he had to beg for mercy, and he got his ass beat by Electro, that he's just lashing out on everybody. He's lashing out on the True Believers, he's lashing out on buildings, he's lashing out on windows, he's lashing out on everything. Eventually he regains his composure after Electra's little pep talk to Maiko about, finding the correct path and not going overboard, which is, I think, is a cool, like, recentering moment for him after all that drama. So overall, it's a good issue. We get more about Robbie's wife really kind of pushing him to leave the Bugle, but now with Jonah going out on vacation and stuff, I guess not on vacation, but you know what? Going out of
Oh, he's
town.
running for his life.
Yeah. Between this and what's going on in Spectacular, he's fucking going through it.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
His family's fucked, dude.
His son's been shot and was killed, and
Yeah, his son's about to turn into a furry. Like, a furry again, I guess. But yeah, it's kind of like a conflict because now with Jonah gone, Robbie has to be there to lead the bugle, or it's gonna go under. So I don't know. What do you think?
Honestly, I personally really like this issue. I think it's probably my second favorite issue out of the bunch. I'm a big Electra fan. I like that she shows up. I like that she has a reason. It would, if there was an offshoot of the Hand running around, it would make sense that a character like Electra or Daredevil would show up and be asking questions. The fact they didn't show up sooner is something I would have asked. But I mean, Electra kind of recentering him, I like that because it's not a character that you would expect to be like, hey, chill the fuck out, don't go showing your rage and everything. People will kind of have the assumption that she's she's an assassin. So, and a lot of people who read Spider-Man might not read Daredevil. So I like that kind of flow of her character, showing that there's more to her than what the common pop culture might say about her. Again, Peter lifting the train is cool as hell. It is, I think, one of the best single moments in the era. It's one of the single pages from this era that to this day still persists. I see it all the time when people talk about how strong he is as a character, and if Peter let loose, how far down a gauntlet could he go, and it's always nice to see Peter cut loose in any way and show, hey, I'm holding back. And I know Spider-Man fans have a bad reputation of being like, hey, he could beat anybody. He just has to get really, frizzled. But it does, you kind of have your cake and eat it too, where he does get to show that strength, but then he recenters and he's like, oh, you know what? It's not me. I'm not that kind of person. And he puts the thing down. And I just think it's funny that there's a random ninja just terrified for his life, right underneath him. But I mean, overall, it's a fun issue. I think that it's a fun little issue to read. And the fact that we don't see Maiko ever again I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. She's not a character that I particularly care about, or she didn't do anything cool or anything like that. So overall, a fine issue. So
Cool. I'm going 7.
I am gonna go. I'll go 7.5.
Okay. A little higher.
Yeah, little bit higher. There's not really much to it, honestly, but it's still a good issue.
All right, are we ready to finish this?
Yeah, and this one's going to be even briefer because I did not do notes for this issue.
This is a 40-page book.
Yeah, this is 100%. I literally have the issue out right now. I'm going to give a brief, quick rundown in a couple sentences. I implore you, please read the issue.
We'll get into more details in the analysis part, but yeah, definitely read this one.
Yeah.
Right. I'll do my little thing really quick, I guess. Amazing Spider-Man 425, The Chump, The Challenge, and The Champion. June 18th, 1997.
So this issue It's written by Tom DeFalco, of course. We have Scroce back, and Bud LaRosa is the inker. Um, and basically, this issue is fighting. It is nothing but fighting. Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. Essentially, Peter is exhausted trying to look for Electro, but we cut to Electro, who is still kind of learning how to use his powers, going on a raid, essentially, or a heist for the Rose to kind of bolster his funds. Instead, he accidentally blows up the truck. We then cut to Peter rushing home. He tries to sneak into his bed to not wake MJ up and not piss her off, but she finds out that, he went out. They're now fighting because she thinks he's going out as Spider-Man too much, and the headache is worrying her. And Peter starts getting an ulcer or has an ulcer because of all the aspirins that he's taking for his headache. More Robbie and his wife fighting. We get more of the Rose and Electro kind of not going at each other, but kind of like arguing. Rose buys him a hideout, and they kind of scold him for, hey, you blew up the truck that we were trying to get. Meanwhile, Peter tries to reinforce his webbing in order to insulate Electro. And during this time, Aunt Anna kind of, walks up in the attic, and he has to cover up for himself. And he kind of talks about during this point, or it's earlier in the issue, about he might want to upgrade his costume. So Electro, while thinking about the problems he's having with his life, he ends up blowing up the building that he has, and it turns into a long fight, where essentially Pete, this is where the part where I'm going to speed through this. Pete goes to Nathan, what is it, Nate X-Man? Yeah, X-Man.
Yeah, Nate Gray, X-Man.
Yeah, Nate Gray. I know almost nothing about him outside of this book. I have never read a book outside of anything he showed up in Spider-Man. So Peter basically goes to Nate and asks him for help on Electro. And what ends up happening is a drag-out fight between these two as Peter comes in with the, I wouldn't call it iconic, but it is a costume, the Electro-proof costume. And the two fight, and Electro's plan is he's going to blow up basically the generator and take everybody out, and Pete doesn't want that to happen, but Nate's like, fuck it, bro, kill him. And what ends up happening is Electro goes up into the sky, and Pete is able to beat him, and he supercharges one of his fists, and he's not able to control it, and Pete tries to save him as Nate flies up and grabs Peter and is trying, during a fall, but Electro cuts the web line and falls into the water and explodes, causing Peter to, be upset that somebody died on his watch. We then cut to, Pete and MJ hugging and everything. And we then at the end the issue completely with a certain female Dr. Octopus that you might recognize if you read a certain thing called the Clone Saga from a couple years ago, showing up as they are talking about how Doc Ock's body has been stolen. And that's the end of this issue.
Yeah, so the fight is 15 pages.
Yes.
If you don't count the pages where he falls into the water and explodes, with that it's 17 pages. That's long as fuck. That's half the book almost.
Even with me doing bare bones, that whole thing was still pretty long.
Yeah.
So
basically, to get more onto like the Rose part, so the Rose talks with Delilah about cutting off Electro because he's too much of a burden at this point and blew up everything and wants to blow up the city. I want to blow up the city. Anyway, So he teams up with the True Believers in hopes of exhuming Doc Ock's body and doing some weird necrophilia shit, not actually, to it, which we'll see in the next couple issues. So that's the Rose's stance in all this, and them stealing Otto's body obviously gains attention of Carolyn, who was Ock's protege, and kind of sorta in love with him if you read Spider-Man Unlimited number 18 and then go back to the Clone Saga to Virtual Mortality and Cyber War, our favorite stories. Everyone's favorite stories, I should say. My apologies. Overall, this issue, it's long. It's good, but if you do take the time to read every single page, which you're supposed to because that's what you do with books, it's a bit much. And I like Electro's kind of like fully lost it in a way where now it's no longer about the fun, it's just simply about revenge. Like, I am the god of electricity. I can destroy this world, and I will. As my final hurrah, I'll take everything with me. No one will laugh at me. No one can be ashamed of me. No one can take pride in knowing they beat me. Like, I will end it all. And there's this moment where you kind of realize just how mentally tortured he is, where he is fighting Peter, and he's like, I bet you're proud. I hope you're proud of yourself for doing this. And Peter's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I'm just beating your ass because you're crazy. And he just goes off the deep end and is like, all right, time to blow up everything. Like, I'm done. No more jokes. Thankfully, Peter stops him. But Peter gets a beating. Like, his electro-proof mask gets broken and his lens is almost shattered on his mask. Electro's he's not down to clown. He's here for real. And I like that display of power. It's something that we don't see a lot from Electro, and like you said, for the last for 423, that Electro does have the ability to be like one of the greats, and this kind of proves it. Art wise, you could tell this is a 40-page book because the art on most pages is really rushed. I would say it's a rush job on Scroce because there's not a lot of detail put into it, especially because there's a lot of panels on each page, and everyone's face is like a shape and a couple lines and some.
Oh, Electro looks off model.
Yeah, and it's inconsistent from page to page as well. He's gone from, well, yeah, you want to say off model, especially in comparison to what Bennett did. He's like now anemic, and like he's got these giant ears, and he's just kind of horrifying to look at. And Scroce's women haven't gotten any better, and now almost a little bit worse because of the lack of detail in the issue. The best parts are when it seems he put all the effort into the big fight, because those are the most detailed pages out of everything. That and the opening splash page with the credits page with Peter swinging away from the crime scene that he nails in the first page. I don't know, for me, kind of an overly long issue. It didn't really need to be like that.
No, this could have been half the length.
The involvement of Nate Gray feels pretty shoehorned in. I understand that they established him in 420, but it's 4 issues from now, or 5 issues from then. And it's, I don't know, it just doesn't feel super necessary for this fight. Like, Nate Gray is a powerful mutant, but he doesn't really contribute anything to the fight, especially because he just wants to lobotomize Electro because he realizes that he is an actual threat. But Peter's not going to let him, so he's just there to lend a hand, and I don't feel like the fight would change at all if he was just not there at all.
No. Other than the save at the end, nothing changes.
Yeah, it's just to get X-Men people, if you're like a fan of X-Men, to pick up the book so that you have a complete set of appearances or whatever. Anyway, I'm done talking. You can go ahead.
Well, you know what? Before I go into like my thoughts, I'm going to ask you this question. What do you think of the insulated suit?
I mean, it's cool. It's one that I have an affinity for because of the PS1 game. But yeah,
I think it looks better with the classic mask on it.
really,
Yeah, I like it better with the classic mask
that's
than
fair.
the insulated mask. It might be because the toy that Toy Biz did of this costume, he has like a classic mask instead of the black mask. That might be why. And I had that toy as a kid. I still have it somewhere or I have a newer one of it for my collection because I like to have one of each costume that he has. But that's the only one time they've ever made it. But I mean, it's an all right costume. A little bland for me, but I mean, when it looks like it serves its purpose. It's puffy. It doesn't look what do you call it? Flashy. It's not sleek. It's not like another black costume.
It's not
So
your
I
classic '90s outfit where it's like outrageous.
it looks like it works. Like even the little thing, the little straps on his leg, like they're straps to insulate the suit. So like it works. But other than that, so moving on from the suit, I mean, it the issue is overly long. I mean, when I read this issue, first of all, from behind the scenes, I just got off the flu, and I thought we were doing to 520 or 424. So I had to rush to read this issue, and it's probably why it felt more of a slog than it did. This was just could have been cut longer. If this book came out today, it would have been $7. Um,
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Would have been no. It probably would have been $7.99.
hmm It, I'm getting tired of Scrose's art. Um, I'm getting tired of. Let me go on a mini rant here. What was the fucking point of killing off Aunt May if we were just going to revert back to being in this house, in Aunt Anna's house, where she was going to immediately divert into an Aunt May knockoff? And every issue now we're gonna have. Oh, Pete, I'm gonna almost walk in on you doing some Spider-Man stuff. That's two issues now where we've had this happen, and it's not something. I know it's a trope, and I know we're going back to classic Spider-Man, but this is a trope that doesn't work for me at this time. This is a 27
He's a
year
grown
old.
ass fucking man.
Yeah, he's a 27-year-old married man, and this woman is walking in on them multiple times. And yes, Peter flips out on her in the previous issue, uh, and he kind of walks it back, and I understand that, but like healthy boundaries should have been set. This is just to set up drama and tension,
And it gets
and
even worse and spectacular.
yeah, this is something that shouldn't have been put in as much as it did. It's already annoying. And the fact that like she like walks in and she sees an obvious web line and
What's
and
this?
she literally looks at it and he goes, "Oh, I'm testing something for tensile strength." And then just it's 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 something that like these writers have this hard on with trying to bring him back to the Ditko era, and this is one example of like why it doesn't work. The dude's 30, almost 30 years old. If I was even if I was living with my parents, my father would never barge in on me if I was doing something. He would knock on the door or something, even if he had something for me. But other than that, you know. I'm also kind of getting tired of Scrose's art at this point. This is kind of where his art kind of starts to get stale for me. I don't like his people. The one page where he's sitting, where he comes into bed and they're talking and he's got the ulcer. Like Aunt Anna at the bottom of that page where she's knocking on the door looks like a horror monster. She looks like a gremlin. And it's just, I don't even know how to put it. Like, it's just so inconsistent, and you can tell that he was not putting his effort into it. And I'm sorry, but his Spider-Man is good. And that opening splash page is great. It's so great they make it a corner box. But you know what? Like, when you're doing a job, you can't just half-ass it and just, hey, I like drawing Spider-Man. I'm not going to draw all the rest of the characters looking good. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe that's just, he just draws that way, or he was tired, or I don't know what's up. But, like, I'm already tired of his art. He's my least favorite artist out of the main artists right now. And especially coming off of an arc where we just got off of peak John Romita Jr. and then going to this. Why isn't Romita Jr. on the main book? That's my biggest question right now. This would have been a lot better book with Romita. But I mean, as far as the plot and everything goes, it's serviceable. Nate didn't need to be in it. I know nothing about Nate. Not going to go out and read anything about him. It didn't make me want to read his book. The Doc Ock thing, I actually forgot that happened. that they took the grave. That's my fault. I actually forgot that happened. But I mean, the fact that like a bunch of ninjas are stealing a grave in the middle of broad daylight is pretty funny. Just the image of it, is pretty funny. But overall, this issue, I'm going to give, I mean, I might be jumping prematurely on this, but I'm going to give it a 6.5. They brought Electro back, and then, he supposedly, killed off again, or you're supposed to assume that. But, I mean, Carolyn being back is cool. So, like, there are silver lines. But anyway, that's roughly how I feel about this. I'm ranting at this point.
Carolyn Trainer supremacy. Let's get it trending. I'm a 6 on this one. So, I don't have anything else to add. That's where I'm at. I can't wait for Scrooge to be off this fucking book. We only have.
I mean, am I overreacting?
I don't think so, dude. I think your criticism is valid, everything you said, but especially as someone who. So we're in 97 now. So we're 2 years before Scrose's run on Gambit, which is also a short run because dude can't draw monthly comics to save his life apparently because whatever, he's one of those artists.
You know what? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know what? That's why Bennett's was on this book so he could draw this issue, and it still came out mid.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. And I spoiler, Bennett takes over the book. I
thank God
quite like that he does, and I'm glad that he does. At least as regular penciler. But yeah, I really wish that we could have gotten Bennett to do this issue as well, but obviously a 40-page book on top of 3 standard 23 pages wasn't gonna work. But either way, I don't know if an issue of Unlimited came out at the same time as this, but if he was doing double pencil duties, then good for him, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. 6 out of 10 on this one. We only have 3 more issues with Scrose, and
thank God.
And then we're done with him.
Thank the Lord. I mean, I do like his Carolyn at the end. That's I like the little joints that he draws on the tentacles and everything for the fingers. But I mean, other than that, like,
Yeah, no one can draw a better Carolyn than Bagley. So
oh, 100%. But I mean,
even though
I'm just
he didn't draw her first appearance, technically, that's
I'm just excited to have her back. I think she's an underrated character.
she is wonderful, and I'm really glad she's still relevant today, even though she's plagued by movie synergy.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was this episode. A little bit longer because a couple more or one more issue than usual. If you enjoyed these summaries and want to read them yourself, guess what? You can actually get these ones from Marvel. You can buy them digitally. You can get Marvel Unlimited to read them that way. You can pirate them if you're daring. But please don't do that. Support the industry. Or you can sift through your local comic shops, back issues bins, and support them, which I also highly recommend. If you're going to support Marvel or your local comic shop, I'm always going to go with local comic shop at this point, especially for old issues like this. They need your business more. I hope you all enjoyed. Next episode, we are going to be covering one of my absolute favorite stories from this time period, Sensational Spider-Man 16 through 18, which is the Vulture / Prowler / Return of DK story. So stay tuned for that one. Very, very excited to cover those books. Until then, do you have anything to say, Matthew?
No, I have nothing to say. I mean, I'm still, like I said, if you follow me on Twitter, I'm probably going to be posting stuff for my collection because I'm organizing everything. And me and we casually talked about it today, but you know, we might be doing something with going through my collection for clone stuff that I have that you don't have that we can kind of add to the archive. But we'll talk about that when that gets more solidified. But other than that, there's nothing.
Cool. Well, speaking of which, be sure to check out the Spider-Man Rescan project if you're interested in reading books from this era that haven't been officially released by Marvel. Also, Scarlet Archives if you're into Ben Reilly and the Clone Saga. It's something that I put together all by my lonesome. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of love on both of those things. Blood, sweat, and tears. Quite literally blood because I cut my fingers a couple times. And lots of punching of a scanner to make it work. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. You can check us out at our social medias. I'll have them linked in the description on YouTube and the description everywhere else. And have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.